Good morning, everyone. Welcome to CVPR 2020 and welcome to Seattle. Really appreciated everyone log on from everywhere around the world. My name is Harry Shum. I'm your host for the first keynote at the CVPR. Thank you for joining the Fireside Chat with Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft Corporation. Hi, Satya. We are very honored to have you joining at the CVPR 2020. I have known you for almost 20 years and had the privilege to work for you over many years. But for our audience, first of all, can you please share with us your journey from growing up in India to studying computer science in the US to joining Microsoft in 92 and ultimately becoming the CEO of Microsoft?
First of all, Harry, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to join you and be a speaker at CVPR. And I know we're living through unprecedented times on many dimensions. And so for this group to come together and talk about sort of the breakthroughs of computer vision and technology, and also the positive impact that technology can have in the world is really great, and it's an honor for me to join you all. To your point, Harry, I grew up in the city of Hyderabad in India for most of my life, and never did I think that I would be here, as I was growing up. At that time, in the mid-'70s, Hyderabad was a very different place than it is even today. But I must say I've been shaped by, I think, two very uniquely American things. American technology, the PC even reaching me where I was growing up, even letting me dream the dream, so to speak. And then later on, the American immigration policy that let me come here, go to school. I'd never been to west of Bombay, and then I showed up in Wisconsin. That was quite a shock to the system. But that said, the opportunities that were given to me, whether it's in school or at Microsoft, really shaped a lot of, obviously, my life and who I am today. And I'm very, very thankful for all of it. And now I'm very grounded, given that opportunity and the platform, is what's the impact? As for a kid growing up in India, to be able to live the life I've lived, I also know that that's a privilege. And the question is, for those of us who have that privilege, what are we doing in terms of creating technology and technology platforms in particular so that it can truly democratize access? So that's what I think fundamentally motivates me. It's what grounds even Microsoft's mission, which you well know, about empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more, is what excites me to come to work each day and make sure that we are doing our very best work.
That's great. Thank you, Satya. Certainly, your story is very inspiring, for many of us, and including many computer vision researchers. So since we are at the CVPR, let's get straight into computer vision. So Microsoft has a long history in the computer vision space. In fact, just a few days ago, my good friend, chairman of CVPR 2020, Professor Gerard Medioni, reminded me that Microsoft Research, MSR, has been the supporter of CVPR for almost 30 years. So can you share with us, why Microsoft is so excited about computer vision, what you are particularly excited about the computer vision now?
No, absolutely. Harry, you obviously were very much part of the Microsoft journey here all through, even starting with the early 2000s, where there was basic research on computer vision with skeleton tracking, human sensing, and that obviously got translated into the very first product in 2010, Kinect, which I think was a breakthrough product, and in fact, it was the best-selling consumer product of that year. And then, that led to, I think, our Cambridge team doing some amazing work around Kinect Fusion to be able to do full 3D reconstruction. Then the HoloDesk, I'll always remember the first time I saw that demo where you could do a full synthesis of a 3D environment, put a 3D object on it, in this case on a desk. That opened our eyes to what ultimately became HoloLens product in 2015. Of course, now, in 2019, we now even even have the next generation HoloLens with HoloLens 2 with twice the field of view, twice the comfort, with amazing breakthrough applications. In parallel, one of the other exciting things, Harry, was to see how we are now innovating on computer vision with the cloud and the edge. And so whether it's object recognition parity that we achieved in 2016, or the release of Azure Connect with its onboard edge computing capability, in 2018, now it creates between the cognitive services in Azure and Azure Connect, you really have, I think, a fantastic tool chain to do very innovative computer vision research as well as applications. In fact, we're seeing many ISVs and third-party developers apply the power of Azure Connect to scenarios across industries, including healthcare. Consider that roughly 1 million falls occur in the US hospitals each year. Occuvera is an ISV that built a video-based monitoring solution that uses Azure Connect to analyze a patient's movement patterns and senses when they're trying to get out of bed unassisted. It alerts the nurse and caregivers before a fall occurs with 96% accuracy. Researchers at Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, are using Connect for early detection movement disorders like cerebral palsy in infants. The prototype they built uses a computer vision model to classify an infant's movement as healthy or at risk so that caregiving and caregivers can intervene early. Super important. And medical device company Evolve is using it to improve the efficacy of physical therapy for stroke survivors. Their solution incorporates traditional therapeutic exercises in interactive games, which are tailored to each patient's individual needs. And so as I'm thinking about CVPR and the future of computer vision, there are three breakthroughs that I'm excited about that will push the frontiers of the impact of computer vision in the real world. The first is what I would call 4D understanding. Sometimes you and I have talked about it as reality as a service. So if you take a space like a hospital, a manufacturing plant, and especially around safety and quality, if we want to be able to reason over people, the place, and the things, and in real time using computer vision, help ensure safety, that can be an amazing breakthrough. And we are seeing that already in deployment in many cases. So I just wanted to roll the video to show you that in action.
We're working on a technology called 4D Understanding, which combines data from multiple Azure Connects with computer vision models for real-time spatial analytics. The system tracks objects, people, interactions, and group activity. In this point cloud video, an activity understanding model can determine that the person is lifting a large bin in an unsafe manner, using his back and not his legs. In the object recognition window, a person is assembling parts. Red and green circles show hand tracking. Object detection comes from Azure Cognitive Services Computer Vision API trained on these objects, and another model is used to analyze the actions of assembling a component. This allows us to tell when steps have been left out. In this case, the system detects that a cable was not used during assembly, and the component is identified as incomplete. By combining multiple computer vision techniques, our system can provide actionable insights in real time.
The next area, Harry, that we're also excited about in this world of remote everything is background matting, right? So if you want, you say you're presenting at home, but we want to put you on stage. In fact, we recently had the Build Developer Conference, and we were able to take presenters who just recorded themselves at home, and then we were able to, in fact, superimpose them in a virtual stage without needing that green screen. And that's, I think, again, breakthroughs in computer vision that, in fact, we worked with the University of Washington on. So let's roll the video.
Virtual backgrounds can be created from the use of computer vision models and Azure Connect's depth data. Our annual developer conference, Build, was conducted virtually to keep people safe. Speakers would appear on virtual stages. You can see the speaker was in a regular room with furniture and no green screen. We asked the speakers to record themselves with an Azure Connect connected to a laptop. With the Connect's ability to record RGB and depth data, we could then apply an AI model that was built on research from the University of Washington to create a dynamic transparency mask. We then replaced the background with the virtual stage. The quality of this background is very good compared to what's available today. We aspire to make digital backgrounds indistinguishable from real ones, so the experience of connecting virtually will be even better. The code for background matting is available now on GitHub.
And Harry, the third breakthrough, I would say, is what we demoed, in fact, just exactly probably a year ago around holoportation. So this is a video which shows Julia White, who's one of our colleagues, presenting on stage in English. And there is a hologram of hers speaking Japanese because of the combination of neural TTS, holographic computing, coming together where you can, in fact, transcend time and space and language. And that, to me, is just an amazing breakthrough. And I hope that these are the types of technologies that will get further accelerated.
Now, she's a little small to do a keynote. So let's get her up so she can do full-size Japanese keynote. Render keynote.
ホログラムになることには本当に驚くべきことがあります。私たちは最新の複合現実キャプチャ技術を使用し、私のホログラムを作成しています。実在の人物をホログラムとして見たことがあるかもしれませんが、私が実際に日本語を話しているのが新しいのです。
Yeah, Satya, this is just so fantastic. It really brings back my fond memory of when we even started the first computer vision group many years ago with great people like Rick Zelinsky and the Matthew Turk and others. And you also mentioned about that the Microsoft Research has many different labs internationally, like Cambridge Lab, China, India, and many vision technologies coming from MSR have contributed to the successful products from Microsoft. Even more exciting to me, from what you described, is really this reinforcement between research and the product. From the Connect to more research, then to HoloLens. Now you're talking about this amazing video from Julia White, holoportation. I think the future with computer vision is very exciting.
No, absolutely.
Thank you, Satya. So next, I'd like to move from computer vision to artificial intelligence, to AI. So Microsoft has invested in AI for a long time, especially since Bill Gates started Microsoft Research in 1991. I remember the first three groups from MSR were natural language processing, speech, and vision, all very much AI. And recently, you made it very clear that the cloud and AI are the key for Microsoft's future growth. And it's also very exciting to see the AI supercomputer announced just last month at the Build conference. So what is Microsoft's vision in AI going forward?
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. As you said, in fact, the first three groups that were created in Microsoft Research were speech, vision, and language. And here we are in 2020 talking about the same three with higher ambition and more success. But it's definitely great to see. I think that for me, one of the fundamental things that we've been at least doing in the last couple of years is looking at these large-scale, high parameter count models that are, yielding amazing results, in particular on language, especially with, going from RNNs to these transformer models. And the results we are seeing are, tremendous. We released something called the Turing model with 17 billion parameters, even when you were leading that team right here at Microsoft. And now we've gone, and partnered even with OpenAI, and they, of course, have taken it to the next level with 170 billion parameters or what have you. And
numbers.
Yeah, it's pretty stunning to see that. And the thing that we did even was build specialized compute. After all, when you are doing these kind of large-scale models, and with all of the challenges you have, even with Moore's law as we speak, we have had to sort of reinvent the system on which you can do these large-scale learning. And it's great to see we built essentially a world supercomputer, an AI supercomputer right in Azure, on which OpenAI is training these models. And in fact, we're going to use these models as platforms so others can use these models to do even tuning on top of it for their particular use cases. So we are very, very excited. I'm also excited about the multimodal nature The dream has always been, how can you have these AI training regimes that are learning from text, learning from speech, learning from images, so that there is better representation of knowledge. And so therefore, I think that that's all things where I think in the years to come, you'll see breakthroughs in systems layer, the modeling techniques and the training techniques, and of course, the breakthroughs around applications, which I think, like in healthcare, if I look at it, what needs to happen around precision medicine, you need breakthroughs where you're able to take the clinical notes, you're able to take the clinical images, and bring all of it together in order to really drive breakthroughs.
Yeah, it's really, really exciting. I just want to respond a little bit about those large models you mentioned about, from the Turing model with 17 billion parameters to GPT-3 with 175 billion parameters. And those models and Microsoft using Azure to really enable and empower many research groups and the companies to not only train their own models, but even apply to the few-shot learning, one-shot learning, even no-shot learning. And there's opportunities there. It's really, really, really amazing. Satya, now, even with this keynotes you are doing, we are doing this online and virtually. Right now, we're really living in this extraordinary time. And, with all this excitement in computer vision and AI, I want to pick up your brain, how you really think about that, the AI vision technologies, how they should be applied to help people to deal with their daily lives, daily work, during pandemic right now, and even more importantly, in the post-COVID world. Can you share with us some examples, how Microsoft is doing it, how Microsoft is helping other people, especially you often mention about, how we can help first responders.
No, absolutely, Harry. I mean, I think one of the things is this crisis has perhaps brought to fore the need for digital technology and how it can help us at large as a society both respond, recover, as well as reimagine how we work and live going forward. I think all these three phases are going to be happening simultaneously, and digital technology, including computer vision, is going to play a huge role in it. In fact, the video we saw earlier of how remote sensing, remote monitoring of a manufacturing plant, that reality as a service, to ensure safety and safety of operations with digital twins can be very, very important in the manufacturing sector. In fact, the other application we saw in manufacturing was we had to rejigger production lines in real time, for example, in order to make ventilators. And that means you needed expertise that was remote to help people who were formatting those production lines. And that was all done through these HoloLens applications and Dynamics applications called remote guides, which was amazing to see. That was one example in manufacturing. In healthcare, in hospitals in the United Kingdom, we saw a very interesting use of both HoloLens and Teams in combination. So a doctor would go in, care for the COVID patient wearing their HoloLens along with the rest of PPE. But the HoloLens, since it saw everything and transmitted that capture back through Teams so that all the other doctors could be outside the patient's room and yet, give instructions on care, right? So it was really brought to forth both safety and collaboration in new ways in the front lines. And when it comes to medical teaching, we saw Case Western Reserve University's medical school, in fact, send their students home with HoloLenses and were able to continue the education, the anatomy class, where the students and the teacher were able to fully ensure that curriculum continued with full fidelity. And it's amazing to see that type of breakthrough. So I think that we are going to start seeing breakthroughs in, whether it's in manufacturing, whether it's in healthcare or in education, where computer vision is going to be key to this world of remote everything.
Yeah, indeed. I think that you said it very well. That it's now with this acceleration of digital transformation. I think the pandemic just made us to think about that even furthermore. One thing I want to ask you is actually your view about the future work and in this post-COVID world. Did you see that people will do that more remotely? And I seem to read somewhere you said that is unthinkable that we will only do things from now on virtually. Even so, some other companies are actually announcing more and more along this line.
No, I think that, I think at a core level, I think we will always want to have this capability of remoting every function inside of our enterprise. Whether it's remote sales, remote operations, remote support, remote work at scale. So I think that there's no question, because I think it's going to be foundational to business continuity and resilience. I think we are also going to learn a lot, Harry, about what is the effectiveness of remote work, for what role, in which industry, and which function. I'm positive that there will be certain roles in certain industries which absolutely, in fact, if you look at even Microsoft, even before pandemic, we had many roles that were 100% remote. And they were very productive. And there were certain roles that required people to come together, to collaborate sometimes. So I would say, I think what I see is, instead of replacing one dogma with another dogma, what is more important is for us to exercise, in fact, the advantage we now have, that we now have the ability to remote anything, to then purpose fit it. So once we come out of the COVID-19 crisis, we will use the flexibility to help people not only their productivity, but also their well-being, their needs. For example, even in Seattle region, where we have now sent a lot of people home, we're realizing that some people would rather have workspace at work once the COVID-19 crisis goes away, because they want dedicated workspace with good network connectivity, because we have some structural problems, even in the developed countries and in cities like Seattle, where Wi-Fi and bandwidth constraints exist. So I want us to be grounded in the realities of people everywhere around the world, and what is the best way to exercise the flexibility, recognizing that remote work can be fantastic and empowering for many people.
Yeah, that's great to hear your thoughts, Satya. My takeaway is that, whatever challenges we face, like pandemic right now, we can always innovate out of this. And it takes a lot of effort, but we'll go through this. So Satya, let's get back to Microsoft, back to the company. So you have done a marvelous job, leading and transforming Microsoft in the past 6+ years. You have always paid attention and made big bets on communities, such as LinkedIn for business professionals and GitHub, for developers. In fact, the CVPR is a big community for computer vision researchers and the industry practitioners. In fact, the last couple of years, attendance to CVPR conference is approaching 10,000 people a year. So many of us would like to ask you, some advice and the wisdom, from you and your experience, with fostering the communities, how each of us in the computer vision community can help each other, work together, grow together, and contribute for even better society.
No, absolutely, Harry. I mean, to us, when we talk about empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more, the central point of that is, through digital technology, how do we help people and institutions and communities people built to thrive? That's been central to how, it's central to Microsoft's mission, it's central to Microsoft's business model. We only do well if the world around us that we are serving, whether it's small businesses becoming more productive, large multinational companies in every part of the world becoming more competitive, public sector institutions becoming more efficient, educational outcomes, health outcomes, and communities at large are thriving. So it's very central to us. And in fact, even the acquisitions you mentioned, whether it was the developer community with GitHub, the professionals with LinkedIn, or even gamers with Minecraft, are all communities we have the privilege to serve. And it's about their outcomes that ground us. And similarly with computer vision, I think that there's a very rich history here of computer vision researchers coming together to create technology breakthroughs. In fact, even the work we're doing across academia as well as Microsoft research in our product innovation. And, Mark Poliface at ETH is a great example of that. He obviously is working with us on some of the product breakthroughs. He's also really creating a great world-class research center at ETH. That cross-pollination is core to community building. And it's also not just about computer vision, it's about computer vision in the broader field of AI, it's the broader field of digital technologies. So I think we absolutely, at Microsoft, we want to be someone who can help bring that ecosystem platform thinking so that these communities can come together and more importantly, can work together with other communities to amplify their work.
That's really great to hear, Satya. It's a lot of wisdom there. And the one particular aspect of communities is actually international. Just like GitHub is international, LinkedIn is international, gamers are international, computer vision CVPR community is no exception. So as you think about how you run this multinational company and now with even more communities, are there some lessons you have learned how we can do better in terms of international collaboration?
Yeah, in fact, I would say, Harry, this next phase of international collaboration, whether it's for the research community at CVPR or even for a multinational company like Microsoft, I think one thing we have to be very grounded on is how is our work collectively and individually helping every community in every country? Talking about globalization without its benefits, being locally relevant, I think we lose permission. In fact, if anything, that is what we have learned, I think, is in the last phase of globalization. Many benefited, but unfortunately, many were left behind. So I think what we have to talk about now, and Microsoft, that's why I sort of ground us. Whenever I go to any part of the world, I sort of look and say, what has Microsoft's participation in that region, that country, led to the local surplus, right? Those small businesses, large businesses, public sector, health outcomes, education outcomes. So unless and until we can concretely point to points of light, progress around local surplus, local employment, local skills, I think we as a global community of whether it's researchers or multinational companies will lose permission to even operate. So I think that that's what I would say we all need to recommit ourselves to that next phase of local impact while globally cooperating. I think the more we can think about it and frame what we do in those lines, I think we will really be able to keep the progress going.
That's really a great point. Satya, you might be also happy to hear that, in fact, the CVPR community and even the larger computer vision community like ICCV has always kind of thinking like that as well. That's why practically every university town, college town in the US has probably by now has hosted a CVPR at some year. And the ICCV, of course, also rotates in different continents. As you said, that only when we have local communities thriving, can we actually have a global organization? That's fantastic. So Satya, we still have a little bit of time. So I actually want to ask you a couple of questions that we have received from the audience ahead of the time. The first one is actually a very timely one. I know you have been thinking a lot. It's about AI. It's about the ethical use of AI. It's the responsibility of AI. And we have noticed that you and Microsoft have paid a lot of attention to this space, even made some tough decisions along this line. So I wonder if you can share with the audience some of the lessons.
Absolutely, Harry. I mean, one of the things that we have been grounded in is when we create AI, how do we ensure we have a set of design principles that codify the core ethical considerations right into the engineering process? It's helpful, in fact, to think about AI safety and ethical use of AI as a design time as well as a runtime engineering consideration. So, for example, on the design time, we started by establishing a set of concrete engineering principles from fairness to accountability to security, privacy, and so on, so that we can ensure that as part of the design process, we have these as first-class constructs, not just abstractions. Then in the context of computer vision, we are practicing this. Take what's happening with facial recognition in our Face API. One of the first challenges was, how do we ensure that there's no bias? And thanks to NIST, there are robust benchmarks now to measure the performance against a number of ethnic groups to ensure that there's no bias in our models and to create a level of transparency that is very helpful. And soon we'll be providing guidance to our customers on how they can measure the Face API performance relative to their own data to set the right thresholds and balance these false matches. So that's one example. Then on the other side are the runtime considerations and the ethical use of AI. And I think we will all have to realize that sometimes even with all the good intentions during design time, if you don't have safeguards in runtime protecting privacy and our democratic freedoms, for example, there could be really bad unintended consequences. And for the past 2 years, we have been focused on developing and implementing strong principles that govern our use of facial recognition. And we've also been calling for strong government regulation since 2018. We have published principles that we use to define which projects, for example, we'll engage on. And there are many projects we say no to, which fall outside these guidelines. We do not sell our facial recognition technology to police departments in the United States today, and we made that commitment that we will not sell this technology to US police departments until there is a strong national law grounded in human rights. We need to use this moment to advocate for strong national law. Otherwise, we'll see responsible companies leaving the market and others stepping in. So we think that going forward, companies like ours need to do our best work around the practice of responsible AI by building it into our engineering process. And then when it comes to usage during runtime, we have both principles we have to adhere to as well as government regulation around the world.
That's actually a great way to frame it. It's actually design time and the runtime. We have to really think about those important, the ethical and the responsibility problems for AI. And of course, computer vision is very important part of that. So Satya, my last question for you is that, as the CEO of the number one company in this universe, and every day you must be thinking about all those big opportunities and how you can help more people. So tell us that, which industry, you are most excited right now, to apply in the cloud and the AI, computer vision.
I mean, it's a great question, Harry, because in some sense, one of the things I think a lot about, and we at Microsoft think a lot about, is how can digital technology in this next phase have much broader impact? I mean, if you think about it, the last 10, 15 years have been phenomenal. But I would claim that some of the usage scenarios are more narrow. There have been a lot more consumer internet breakthroughs. But if you look at the broad arc of productivity, and productivity leading to economic growth, that is helping small businesses, large businesses, helping every sector of the economy in every part of the world, we've not really achieved even some of the growth rates that were there in the 90s and the early 2000s thanks to the PC. I mean, in fact, if you go to Robert Gordon's critique of productivity in the United States in particular, he sort of points out that between 1870 and 1940, there was amazing progress. And he will even claim that, the information technology, especially the PC, led to productivity growth in the 90s and the early 2000s. But since then, we've not had great productivity gain. Why is it? Some of it could be statistics and how we measure it. But that said, I hope that in this next phase, thanks to AI, thanks to cloud and technologies like this and computer vision, we can see broad sectoral growth. I'm excited about, for example, healthcare. After all, in the US, 19% of our GDP is in healthcare. So can we really have breakthroughs in precision medicine, where we are able to take clinical data, the molecular profile, and then really make breakthroughs in how people are treated and how care is administered. Autonomy, after all, in a remote everything world, whether it's inside out or outside in, like that video we saw of reality as a service is what I described as inside out autonomy, which is people are moving, things are moving, and someone is observing and helping, keep things safe, or an autonomous object that is moving in the real world. I think autonomy will change transportation as well as operational safety in many, many locations. Retail, on commerce, we know that's going to be significantly changing. Even there, it's going to be omni-channel, right? It's offline and online. In fact, even COVID-19 has brought forth some of these solutions like contactless shopping, curbside pickup. These are going to be, I think, will have a huge ramification around how retail is done. Precision agriculture for food security, because that's another huge area. The other area where I'm very excited about is, even with computer vision, is accessibility. We have 1 billion people in the world who still don't participate in our society and economy because of their accessibility needs. And I think that we now have technologies, whether it's machine reading and comprehension technologies for people with dyslexia so that they can read, or it's seeing AI-like tools that we built using latest breakthroughs in computer vision for someone with visual impairment to be able to interpret the world. Or eye gaze, someone with ALS to be able to type and communicate with just the gaze of their eyes. So I think that I hope we will have real breakthroughs in AI that even bring newer and greater accessibility technology, empowering the 1 billion plus people in the world who need to participate in our societies and economies. So I'm excited about all of these.
Indeed, it's really, really exciting. And, I picked up the core of your thesis here is productivity. Is productivity for everyone and everywhere. Yeah.
That is correct.
Satya, my real last question for you that I have to ask you for this audience is that, is Microsoft going to hire more computer vision people?
We always are there to hire more computer vision people and, quite frankly, to partner even with all the computer vision people out there in this community. Again, thank you so much, Harry, for the opportunity. I think that this is a very important community. I'm so glad, even with all the constraints, that this community is getting together to talk about the advances. And as you rightfully said, to me, what matters the most is not just our technology and technology breakthrough for its own sake, but I know what motivates everyone at this conference is how is this technology leading to that economic growth that is more inclusive, more equitable, and really helping everyone on the planet get better at achieving their dreams. And that, I think, is what each of us cares deeply about, and it's fantastic to have this opportunity to talk to you all.
Well, thank you very much, Satya. It's just so wonderful. I really appreciate your time joining us. And thanks to everyone online for tuning in. And we'll have a wonderful future with computer vision. Thank you.